So I wanted to do just one quick announcement.
Yes, you had the thing
for those. The restrooms are in their usual place, but if you go out the front door and come in that way, there's somebody doing a little bit more work there. We're very glad to have indoor plumbing again. They were remodeling these, and they had porta pots out front for us. And we're also very glad to have heat because our heater was going out, and they would fix it, and it would last 2 or 3 hours, maybe a day, and then it would go out. So we have the luxury of indoor plumbing and heat. Welcome everyone. Just want to, again, if you could just go out the front door and into the bathrooms if you need to use the restroom.
We have the door popped open.
All right, our next item is public comment. Anybody from the public like to make a comment on anything that's not on the agenda, but is it within the purview of this board? Oh, roll call. I'm sorry.
Okay. Chair Mashburn.
I'm here.
Vice Chair Matsumoto.
Here.
Supervisor Hume.
Here.
Supervisor Burgess.
I'm here. Thank you.
Supervisor Ding.
Here.
Oh, there you are. Okay. Supervisor Provenza.
He's tied up in the car. I'm here. Villegas.
Hey. Oh, I have it.
I tied him up in the car. He's outside.
Welcome. Board Member Miller or a different rep from Finance. Sometimes they send someone else.
Yes, Matt Almy, Department of Finance is here.
Welcome. Board Member Cash? Board Member Udine?
Here.
Board Member Winter?
Here.
And that will do it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Brian just joined. We have 9. We do have a quorum.
Excellent.
All right, thank you. And then it looks like I jumped ahead, so I guess we're on introductions here. So
We did. Oh, could recognize any.
Oh, liaison advisors. I'm so sorry. I get so much pressure here. So I'm going to call out the ones that I see here from the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. From Susan Resource Conservation District.
Stewardship.
All right. From the Yolo Basin Foundation.
Yes, this is Marge Kohler. I'm here online.
And is there any other liaison advisors present?
Jim.
Oh, Jim.
He's online.
Good morning, everybody. It's Jim Waters.
Good morning, Jim. I said Susan Resource, so we should have thrown you in there too.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any ex officio members present? Assemblyman Grayson or Senator Dodd?
Yes, Dan Welsh from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
There you are. I even asked who you were this morning. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
Yes. And Brian, we did call roll. And you're here.
I am here.
Any other liaison advisors or ex officio members present online?
Oh, this is Jim Waters again. I'd just like to tell everybody I have indoor plumbing too.
All right, now we're on to public comment. If anybody has anything for the board that is not on the agenda but is within the purview of the board and would like to make a comment. Anybody online? Seeing none. I'll move to the consent calendar. Anybody wish to make any comments on the consent calendar? Does anybody on the board wish to have anything pulled from the consent calendar for discussion?
Chair Mashburn, the only thing I was going to bring up was that there was one set of minutes that we were unable to approve because there weren't enough people. I don't know if that's been resolved.
It has not been resolved. I was going to cover that in the executive officer's report, but I'll do that now. Basically, due to a number of new board members coming in, we were unable to have sufficient votes to approve the October and November meeting minutes. Ultimately, that's not going to change because we still have new board members. So what we've done is we've marked them as unapproved, but we've linked them to the video recording of the meeting so that any individual who is interested could go back and verify the validity of those meeting notes, and we'll just leave them forever marked unapproved. We worked that out with Nicole, and our legal counsel's comfortable with that, so I think that's what we'll.
Thank you. So I'll move the minutes to approve the minutes from the January 26th meeting.
All right, I have a motion for approval. Do I have a second? Got a second? All right. It's like an auction.
Okay,
All those
here
in
we go.
favor?
Oh, we have to roll call.
Oh, we gotta do roll call.
And we
Yeah.
do have 10
Zoom
of
in.
us here today. Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matsumoto. Yes. Supervisor Hume,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Yes.
Supervisor Ding,
Aye.
Supervisor Villegas.
I'll need to abstain. I wasn't present.
Abstain. That's okay. We have enough this time. Board Member Almy,
Abstain.
am I saying that correctly? Is it Almy?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you.
Board Member Cash,
Aye.
Board Member Udang. Aye. Board Member Winternitz.
Yes.
With 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ayes to abstain, the motion carries.
All right. That takes us to the executive officer's report, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to start with a staffing update. Please welcome Lauren Damon in the back corner there. Raise your hand, Lauren. Lauren's our newest senior environmental scientist. She's been with us since February 13th. She's going to be the Ecosystem Restoration and Climate Adaptation Project Supervisor, primarily working on the nature-based solutions grants. And we're very happy to say that we have several concept proposals coming in for those grants, so it's very exciting. Lauren's coming to us from California Department of Fish and Wildlife, where she spent about 15 years working in the Delta, doing monitoring of aquatic resources in the Delta. So she's got a lot of great experience in the Delta, and we're proud to have her. She's doing a great job. She's only been with us about a month, so please welcome Lauren. Say hi. We're continuing to fill vacancies. We're trying to fill an office technician and then a fiscal and board analyst to replace Jessica and her old position and give her some support in all that she does coordinating the board activity. Moving on, Form 700 is due April 1st. So if you're like me and you're one of the procrastinators, you don't have much longer, please get that done and get that in. If you've got any questions, reach out to Jessica. I'm going to take a minute or two to talk a little bit about the Delta Drought Response Pilot Program. You all will recall that in November, the board approved 61 grants to support farmers who wanted to reduce their consumptive use during the drought. And staff did a miraculous job of processing all 61 grants very quickly. And no sooner did they complete that task than the hydrology fundamentally changed. And we went from extreme drought to unprecedented snowpack and more than we know what to do with. So the question became, how do we manage that program? So staff reached out to all 34 grantees. There were 34 grantees, 61 grants, and just had a dialogue with them about, what were their interests, what's their capacity, and essentially what we realized is that all of them have either made expenditures related to the program, or they would not be able to go back to business as usual because they couldn't get seed in time, or they couldn't get a contract to buy the commodity at the end of the growing season. We talked to several about the potential to extend their grant to the next 2 years in the chance that it may be dry in the coming years. And there was very little interest in that because of just the volatility of commodity pricing. And they are all confident, as are we, that during the hot months of the summer, they will still save water with the practices that we're paying them to employ. We're also very certain that the data that we get through this process will just be valuable data and information about how to manage the system in dry and wet years to conserve water. So all that said, we've basically decided that we will just run the grant program as designed, honor all of the grants, and just move forward. And that's what we're going to do. So we are going to have a great a report later on in the agenda on year one with all the data. And so looking forward to that. Pause there for any questions or thoughts. Yes.
Remind me again, how long does the program run for?
It's just for the water year. So the practices we're paying them for will run through September 30 this year. All right, we already talked about the minutes approval, so I'll pass up on that. Nutrient eradication, the report is in the back of the document. No significant change there, no further sightings within the Delta that I'm aware of, which is all good news. Moving on to Delta Science. Wanted to mention that the Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee Restoration Subcommittee of the Delta Stewardship, we had our first Delta Restoration Forum right here in this room on February 8th. We mentioned this at the January meeting that this was upcoming, but it was great. There were 50 people in the room. There were about 100 people online virtually. Great opportunity for the Delta community to come in with the practitioners and the agencies to talk about restoration. We focused on the restoration targets that are in Chapter 4 of the Delta Plan and how collectively we anticipated achieving those targets through time. And then also did breakout sessions where the participants could provide information that they thought about or they see as opportunities for restoration and also constraints that we're going to have to deal with through time. So it was a really, really, really productive discussion. We're going to try to do at least 2 of those a year. And also we're planning that the next one will actually be out in the Delta and maybe at multiple locations in the Delta so we can just get more people, local interest. I think that was there were 150 people there, but probably less than a half a dozen actual landowners. So we definitely want to try to increase their participation. Conservancy staff, Rachel Wigginton, facilitated the Delta Invasive Species Coordination Team. Their first meeting was on March 14th. And then also wanted to mention, based on our last conversation, we have several new board members. There's a couple upcoming opportunities for board members to go on site visits. The Delta Independent Science Board will have their meeting on March 28th, and they're going to be hosting a tour focused on agriculture and wildlife-friendly farming. That is a public meeting, so if you let them know that you're interested in going, that's a great opportunity. And then also the next DPIC meeting, do the acronym again, the Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee, is scheduled for April 24th, and it will also feature a restoration project site visit. So getting close to wrapping up here, moving on to board directives from the January meeting. There was a request that we provide an overview of resources for science, data, environmental compliance, and permitting for Conservancy projects. Supervisor Mashburn, you highlighted that. On agenda item 12, staff has put together a really comprehensive and just great overview of science, data, permitting, and how it all fits together. It was a challenging effort to do. It's a very complex set of information, but it was great for us to do it, and it will be posted online, and you'll get to see it here shortly. Supervisor Hume requested that we provide a list of Conservancy funded projects that include information about the county in which the project is located. Staff has developed an online table that will reside on our website that will allow you to click through that, and you can actually sort by county. And then we also have a hard file that we can email out to board members as soon as it's ready, which should be very soon this afternoon. Lastly, as always, there was a request that we do more project site visits. And there was an offer potentially to have some boats maybe to do an aquatic site visit. So what we've decided to do is mostly for planning purposes, we would like to go ahead in May, have our board meeting down at the Oakley Science Center. It's the Big Break, thank you. The Big Break Science Center, and then tour a couple of Delta Conservancy funded projects right there adjacent to that. And then in October, gives us a little more lead time, we'd like to try to plan an aquatic site visit, likely to probably around the Franks Tract, little Franks Tract area. There's a couple of projects that are in that area. It's just a great area to see. And then further, we'd like to make that sort of a consistent annual approach. So at least 2 site visits, 1 off-site board meeting, 1 in May, and then 1 in October. And as long as we know that, and that's kind of baked into our processes, it just helps us plan. And coming out of COVID, it's good to establish that, that process. Okay, I think that concludes the program update. I'll pause for questions and then I'll turn it over to Jessica to do the budget update.
Hi, I'm Jessica Adel. I'm the administration supervisor here at the Conservancy. Our budget and expenditure report is agenda item 5.2, and it is page 11 in the board packet. It is our second quarter report through December 31st. No big surprises here. Obviously, everything should be at 50%, but as many of our expenditures are from state agencies, they do run a bit behind. I always like to look at personnel services. It's 44%. We, as Campbell said, we have a couple openings still that we have budgeted for and haven't been filled, so we'll probably adjust that number. And obviously facilities is the only other one that usually keeps up to date because our rent is due and paid. Other than that, we know everything's running smoothly. Expenditures. Is there any questions? Thank you.
All right, that concludes the executive officer's report. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. So we're on the ecosystem restoration and climate adaptation grant program update. Dr. Fox, you are on.
All right. Good morning, board members. I'm Trevor Fox, an environmental scientist here with the Delta Conservancy. It's my pleasure to present to you the agenda item number 6, the Ecosystem Restoration and Climate Adaptation Update, or ERICA for short. We'll start off with an update on the active ERICA projects. Just as a note, you can always find the details for specific active projects in the board materials. We provided a complete program update, and all new information is listed on the new information row for each specific project. Moving on to our modifications and amendments. It was a busy modification and amendment season. We had a total of 8 requests that have come through since the previous board meeting, several of which I'll highlight here. Starting off, the Marsh Creek Reservoir Restoration and Total Mercury Reduction Planning Project, number 2211, has requested an amendment to increase the project budget, which will be discussed in detail during our presentation of agenda item number 7. We have several ongoing projects that have requested timeline and or minute budget modification requests, and these have been due in part due to weather-related delays. Recent extreme weather events, as we all know, have limited physical access to some of these sites, causing delays in both construction and the ability to collect data, ultimately affecting the wrap-up timelines. These amendments are described in more detail on the accompanying ERICA program update. Finally, Project 1804, the Delta Working Waterways Habitat Restoration Planning Project, has requested the addition of another site outside of the legal Delta area. The site, Kingsley Ranch, is a working cattle and grain ranch with numerous ephemeral streams that drain directly into Lindsay Slough, making it an important upstream habitat connected to our Delta waterways. The project site addition satisfied all conditions stipulated in the 2022 board resolution approving the addition of extra Delta sites, as long as they were located within 5 miles of the legal Delta boundary. And so we were happy to grant that approval and collect science from that location. Moving on to our nature-based solutions project updates. The Conservancy is now actively working with potential grantees on project proposals for the Nature-Based Solutions Program. For context, this program makes available up to $36 million in funding, with the goal of driving projects that restore, conserve, and protect landscapes and promote climate resilience for wetlands in the Delta area. We have received 2 concept proposals, anticipating additional proposals to be submitted in the coming week. As for our remaining funds for ERICA, currently there are $500,000 available in Proposition 1 funding and additional $34.2 million available in the new nature-based solutions funding. Now moving on to our closed projects. Since the last board meeting, we've had 1 additional project reach its end. Project 1702, that's the restoration planning at River Garden Farms. With that completed, we will have a total of 13 closed Proposition 1 projects. As per our standard practice, you can find the final reports available we'll make them available upon request. Now for our awarded and drafted projects, the Conservancy is pleased to announce that Project 2207, the Yolo Bypass Wildlife Area Habitat Drainage Improvement Project, has been signed and executed. We are continuing to work with the grantees on completing the remaining Proposition 1 Cycle 5 grants, and we anticipate having more agreements executed shortly. Next up, Conservancy staff member Angie Shakia will be presenting an amendment to Prop 1 2211. That's the Marsh Creek Reservoir Restoration and Total Mercury Reduction Planning Project. And that is agenda item 7.1 for your consideration. But first, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them before we move on.
Project. That's correct.
That's correct. The funding end date has come to pass, and now they're in the monitoring and long-term stage.
For those closed implementation projects, not necessarily planning, I see a final reports or photos also.
Yes, in the final reports, there are maps, relevant science data and photos available.
And photos. So I guess my suggestion is, I think it's good for me, and I think it'd be good for the board to take some of those closed projects periodically and spend just 5 minutes and show this project closed. Here's the post project. Here's the pre-project project, just so we can get an idea of what took place. Really, I think that's a great idea. Yeah, you don't have to spend much time, but just visual.
I like that. We've also talked recently. Hope's actually designing a new executive officers report that would actually highlight closed projects with photos of new staff. We might up our game a little bit there.
Well, I just guess from my perspective, spend a lot of money on projects, which is good, but I'd like to see the results.
Absolutely. And I will say, I hope everybody heard, but Trevor mentioned there's $500,000 left in Proposition 1. So that means we have expended almost the entire 50 million on 35, 36-ish projects, all locally supported. And so it's a big accomplishment. That was our first big tranche of funding. Big milestone.
If that's it for questions, I'll hand it off to Angie.
All right, so it's consideration of amendment to budget ecosystem restoration and climate adaptation grant program agreement for Marsh Creek Reservoir Restoration and Total Mercury Reduction Planning Project. All right. That's almost painful.
All right. Good morning, board members. As mentioned, my name is Angie Shakia. I'm an environmental scientist here at the Delta Conservancy. Today, I'll be presenting agenda item number 7, which is a request for the consideration of an amendment to the Marsh Creek Reservoir Restoration and Total Mercury Reduction Planning Project. The staff report for this amendment can be found on page 27 of the board packet. For a bit of background, this project was originally awarded Proposition 1 funding in July of last year for the amount of $350,000. This is a planning project, and its objective is to develop 100% design plans and to prepare the appropriate environmental permitting and compliance documentation that can be used for the future implementation of a multi-benefit project to restore the Marsh Creek Reservoir. This agenda item presents a request for an increase to the project budget, where the awardee, the Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, is requesting an additional $200,000 of Conservancy funding. Back in August of 2022, the awardee initiated a competitive qualification-based procurement process to hire a consultant for project design, environmental science, and permitting. And the resulting cost proposal from the qualified consultant was significantly higher than what was originally budgeted by the awardee in August of 2001. Therefore, the original requested funds, the additional funds requested here today will be used to cover a portion of the increased project costs related to design and permitting that consultant. So on page 28 of the board packet, there's a table that demonstrates how the awardee has increased their cost share under this project. Approval of this amendment will allow the awardee to complete excuse me, complete project planning as it was proposed in the awarded project. However, if Conservancy funding is not approved, the awardee will pull from other flood control district funds that they've set aside for project implementation to ensure the project continues as proposed. This does have the risk to create, or excuse me, this has the potential to create a risk for future project implementation, in that implementation could be delayed or deferred while sufficient funding is secured. So staff believes that the approval of this amendment would not fundamentally change the merit of this project as it was evaluated during the competitive review process. Conservancy staff recommends that the board approve an amount up to $200,000 as explained in the report. So at this time, I can take any questions.
Seeing none, any from the public? Anybody online?
No.
No? All right, then I'd be looking for a motion on that item.
Chair, I'll move that the board approve a pre-execution amendment to the grant agreement with Contra Costa County Flood Control and Water Conservation District for project ID P1-2211 to award an additional $200,000 in project funding.
Thank you.
You're the man. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. Motion and a second, and we guess we have a roll call.
We're gonna take our job away reading that motion so well. Thank you. Showing off there. Okay, so Marsh Creek, Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matsumoto,
Yes.
Supervisor Hume,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Yes.
Supervisor Ding, back, Supervisor Villegas,
Aye.
Board Member Almy,
Aye.
Board Member Cash,
Aye.
Board Member Udine. Aye. Board Member Winternitz. And did we get Supervisor Ding?
You should be able to unmute yourself.
We'll pass on that one for now. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 9 ayes. And the motion carries.
All right, that brings us to the Community Enhancement Grant Program update.
Good morning, board members. My name is Maya Garrett, and I'm the Conservancy's Ecological and Community Program Analyst. I'm here to present Agenda Item 8, the Community Enhancement Grant Program Update, which is on page 29 of your agenda packet. The Community Enhancement Program, or CEP, is funded through a $12 million allocation for Proposition 68, the California Drought, Water, Parks, Climate, Coastal Protection, and Outdoor Access for All Act of 2018, and 2 general fund allocations of Climate Access and Resource, or CAR funds, totaling $11.4 million. The program funds projects related to recreation and tourism, historic and cultural preservation, environmental education, and community access. The program accepts proposals on an ongoing basis and is actively seeking proposals for the open solicitations. We are also aware of several potential projects currently working on their proposals. Currently, there is $5.1 million available in Proposition 68 funding and $6.56 million available in CAR funds. However, we are recommending for consideration today awarding $2.5 million in CAR funds and $330,000 in Proposition 68 funds. This report highlights the projects funded through the CEP. I'm happy to report that we have 10 executed grants. The projects are detailed on pages 30 through 33 of the agenda packet, but to provide a few highlights, project ID P6802, the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse acquisition project, has completed purchase of the property, And project ID P6804, the City of Pittsburgh Boat Launch Facility and Central Harbor Park Upgrade Planning Project has completed 90% design plans and have submitted a concept proposal for the implementation phase of the project for CAR funding. In addition to these projects, we have 2 proposals, one of which will be presented today and 1 amendment request. Agenda item 9.1, the Delta Aquatic Center of Stockton. Details about the proposal can be found on page 35 of your agenda packet. Request approval today. And the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse Restoration Project has requested an amendment for time and cost increase and will be presented during item number 10.1 on page 39 of the agenda packet. Thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Don't see any questions, none from the public?
No public comment.
No public comment. All right, well, we've already kind of segued into 9.1. So,
Yes, thank you. This is just a procedural question. If I had a project that I'm working on that's in a very nascent stage right now, but obviously I'd like to get in the queue for potential future funding, how would one go about encouraging an application or making that application happen?
Typically, we meet first with a potential grantee to make sure their project is aligned with priorities and get an idea of their funding, and then they can move on to the concept proposal phase, where they essentially give us a more detailed written proposal pitch. And from there, if we determine that it's a good fit for the program, they'll be invited to go through the full proposal project process.
Okay,
So
and
they
is
meet with staff first, I would say.
great. And so would somebody please send me over the criteria for who the awardee needs to be relative to their capacity?
We can do that.
Thank you.
all right, any further on that? No? All right, well, we're moving on to 9.1.
Me again. In follow-up to the Community Enhancement Grant Programs update, I'm pleased to present for board consideration a recommendation to award CAR funding for the Delta Aquatic Center of Stockton Planning Project to the San Joaquin Community Foundation. This item can be found on pages 35 through 38 of your agenda packet. Conservancy staff recommends the board approve up to $2,544,725 in grant funding for this proposal, the purpose of which is to complete a 2-phase planning project that will ultimately create complete construction documents for the Delta Aquatic Center of Stockton. The overall purpose and goal of the Delta Aquatic Center is to build a world-class water sports facility in Stockton. This ADA-friendly facility on the Delta will make it possible for all to access the Delta in a small human-powered watercraft, regardless of ability to pay. This planning project is not considered a project under CEQA, although the proposed project does include the completion of the CEQA documents and required permits for the implementation of the project. Phase 1 of the project includes completion of 65% design plans and approval of CEQA findings by the board. Phase 2 includes 90% design plans, permits, and completion of construction documents if approved by the board. Additionally, this project is located in a severely disadvantaged community and is expected to support the community through increased economic activity, tourism, and increased access to the Delta regardless of income level. Lastly, although the San Joaquin Community Foundation will not contribute cost share, they did secure funds from the City of Stockton and County of San Joaquin to fund the business plan and feasibility study for the project. The project also has considerable backing from the community, as evidenced by 40 letters of support from local businesses, community organizations, and area governments. Our staff is pleased to recommend this project for board approval. There is suggested motion language at the bottom of the agenda item for your consideration, but what I will recommend today has been expanded to include the 2-phase funding approach and board approval of responsible agency findings prior to the funding of the 2nd phase. But before we proceed, I'm happy to take any comments or questions.
Questions from the board, sir?
So who
Yes.
is the, yes?
I have a question, if I may.
Sure. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask the basis of the determination that it's more appropriate to fund this out of general fund rather than the Prop 68 program? What was the basis of that recommendation, particularly because some of the benefits that you alluded to earlier actually align with the disadvantaged community requirements of Prop 68?
I think it was due to the fact that we have more of an urgency to expend CAR funds at this time. And we also have projects in the pipeline that would only qualify for Prop 68 funds.
And just one thing to add to that too, is that by the definition that we've established for supporting SDACs, we're at about a 90% support rate or expenditure rate for supporting SDACs in the projects that we've funded so far with Prop 68. So we've exceeded the minimum significantly.
Okay, well, but just so I'm following here, the previous agenda item 8, there is 5.1 million that's still available for Prop 68. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my question is that the CAR funding that you're alluded to, both the 2021 Budget Act as well as the 22 Budget Act, my recollection, well, were those Budget Act appropriations tied to various broader climate resilience initiatives, like nature-based solutions or water, like the water resilience package?
I think the CAR was climate resilience, access, and resource restoration. So we were aligning it with the public, with the access component of the CAR funding.
Okay. The issue that I guess I wanted to kind of delve into here is that this aquatic center, I think, is a very supportable project, and aligns with the scope of community enhancement grant the community enhancement grant program in Prop 68. The money that you're alluding to here was intended more for broader climate resilience initiatives, which in my mind, this aquatic center doesn't really fit into climate resilience as much as it does these community enhancement programs. So and given the fact that there's 5 million available in Prop 68, it just seems like it would be more appropriate to fund this out of the Prop 68 program, since it's a much better alignment.
Yeah, I have a question on that. In funding it out of the Prop 68, though, it sounds like we may be putting some other projects in jeopardy because they won't receive funding down the road in the near future. Is that correct?
I mean, I think you could make that argument. It's they're not approved yet, but I think there is that issue, absolutely.
But it's also there's also fair to say that there would be climate resilience projects, ecosystem restoration projects in the Delta that would be the opportunity cost of funding it out of this funding too. So there's opportunity costs on both sides of the ledger. And in my mind, because this aligns much more closely with the Prop 68 program intent, as opposed to these other items, which are more climate resilience focused, and the fact that Prop 68 does have funding available, it just appears to me that that would be more appropriate.
I certainly understand the concern. I guess, in our interpretation of the CAR funding, it is the CAR is access. And so we weren't anticipating that projects had to hit all 3 requirements of the funding. One was sufficient. That, coupled with the desire to move the general fund money as quickly as possible, is what motivated us to use CAR. So Brian, I don't know if you can chime in on that at all, about your expectations for the CAR funding, or how we're looking at it more broadly. Any thoughts, Brian? See none?
On how to use the car funds more broadly?
Well, again, we looked at the car funding as having public access as one of three funding purposes. And so therefore we've shifted this project to support that. But I don't know whether that's happening elsewhere or if.
Yeah, I'm not aware of it happening any elsewhere, but access is part of the acronym. So, I think this project fits within that.
Can anyone speak to whether this funding was within some of the administration's climate packages? Like, was it identified in, say, a water resilience package or nature-based solutions package or any of those?
We had a separate pot for nature-based solutions package that came to us, 36 million.
Yeah.
For nature-based solutions. All
right. But these weren't identified within any, like, for example, water resilience project.
Oh.
It wasn't part of water resilience, for example?
Half of the project is in CAR 2, which is part of NBS language.
So I'm being told that the CAR 2, the second allocation, is actually part of the nature-based solutions package.
Okay, so yeah, so nature-based solutions. And so again, this isn't about the justification of the project. The project makes sense. All I'm saying is an aquatic center is not a nature-based solution. And therefore it is more appropriate to be funded out of Prop 68 because it's not a nature-based solution.
Another question. So this CAR 1 or CAR 2 funding? We're talking about.
The plan was to fund it with the small amount of remaining CAR 21, but the majority would be CAR 22.
What's above? Yeah. Okay.
So can I ask, is then the opposing argument that Prop 68 can then not be used for nature-based solution projects? Because that seems to me to be what would be a result of something.
No, not at all. Not at all. The argument is threefold. One is that the legislature enacted and the governor signed the 22 Budget Act that included a nature-based solution package that included the $6 million for the Delta Conservancy to support nature-based solutions, climate resilience and nature-based solutions. The Aquatic Center, while justified, is not a nature-based solution, so it's outside the scope of a nature-based solution. Second, Prop 68 has a program that's designed for community enhancement projects. And third, there's $5 million available in Prop 68 for that purpose. And consequently, this is more appropriate to be funded out of Prop 68 because it's more consistent with the intent of Prop 68 as well as the intent and is less consistent with the nature-based solutions funding provided in the 22 Budget Act.
And I guess
That's kind of
the
the argument.
more consistent versus less consistent. If consistency is still there, in theory, we can use CAR 1 or 2 funds.
Well, so I guess where I'm suggesting is someone can make the argument how the Aquatic Center is consistent with the nature-based solution. I'd like to hear that.
I don't know if anybody else can help me here, but the best I can do is that the funding source is actually referred to as climate resilience, access for all, and restoration management. So this is providing access for all. And so that was our assessment that it was consistent with the funding source as providing access to the Delta and to, so that was our justification for looking at CAR, combined with the expectation that there was value and importance in trying to expend the general fund as quickly as possible because it has a much shorter lifespan liquidation period. And so that was where we went.
So we need to spend it. It's part of the title of the law, right? I mean, it was there when they passed it, when the governor signed it, when everybody had something to do with it, it was access. And now all of a sudden it's just about climate. Is it about climate access?
Well, it was,
Or is
it
it not?
was,
Is it,
it was-
cause, call it just climate.
it was sold as nature-based solution. So when we
It was
proposed
titled as climate access and resilience. It wasn't sold as climate. It was sold as climate access resilience. It is all three of those things. Bubba.
If I may, I'm curious to hear more about how it was sold as a nature-based solution. This is Nicole Rinke, your counsel. I haven't, I'm not sure that that's a limiting factor related to the allocation that the Conservancy was given. I just haven't heard that. So, Matt, I don't know if you can speak to where that comes from.
So what I heard in answer to my question was that this 6 million was specified in budget documents as part of the administration's nature-based solutions package. And so the budget included a nature-based solution package that had multiple allocations to, say, Wildlife Conservation Board, Department of Fish and Wildlife, and various conservancies to support nature-based solutions of the administration's broader 30 by 30 goals. And so that was kind of the initiative. And the information that I just heard a moment ago was that this $6 million was a specific line item within that nature-based solution package. Again, I'm just taking the information that I heard a moment ago. And so consequently, yeah, go ahead. If that's wrong, then that's fair.
Yeah, this was not part of the nature-based solutions package.
It wasn't.
It was not, no. This was
Okay.
separate. This was, if you look at section 111 of AB 179, it's $6 million that was in provisional language that was made available for climate resilience, community access, and natural resource protection. And then provision 2 is $36 million for wetland restoration efforts. That 36 million is part of the nature-based
That's
solution.
the nature-based, but this was not counted or scored as nature-based.
It was not, no.
And was it, and it wasn't part of the water package either?
No, it was not.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Yep.
So we good to go?
Can I make a comment first before we move?
Absolutely.
The item? 'Cause I'd like to move the item also. So I'm from Stockton. I am in one of these communities that lives next to the water and grew up next to the water, and I've never been on the Delta. Ever. I'm 33. I literally live right off of the freeway and the port is in my backyard, and I have never been on that water. This is so critically important for our community. So I would like to please move this item, and I would enjoy a second.
I'll second it.
Would you like the motion language since it's, okay, I'll go ahead and read the motion language. Move to award funding up to $2,544,725 to the San Joaquin Community Foundation for the Climate Access and Resource Grant Program for the Delta Aquatic Center of Stockton, subject to the two-phase funding approach explained in the staff report and the board's approval of responsible agency findings prior to the funding for the second phase.
A motion and a second.
I'm sorry, Chair Mashburn, you both seconded it, so.
Oh, no, I'm good. Okay. I will surrender mine. I'm easy.
Okay, now you both seated, so I really need a second.
All right, I'll second. Yes, ma'am.
Chair, is that going to include taking her out on the water as part of the?
Absolutely, it's gotta, right? Get her on a boat.
I apologize. Before we vote, there was a member of the public who wanted to comment.
Oh, absolutely.
Sharon Sand, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you, Chair, members and staff. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, great. This is Sharon Sand from the Trust for Public Land, and we'd just like to enthusiastically support the proposed center in Stockton. This project will connect the residents of Stockton to the beauty and joy of having a river run through their city. As we just talked about, a river that has that should be available for recreational benefits to all Stockton residents. There have been many barriers to connecting with nature in Stockton, as so many of the riverside access areas have been prioritized for industry over access to green space and access to the river for residents. Investing in the Delta Aquatic Center will ensure that youth, elders, and those with physical disabilities have access to connect with nature and connect to the river. Having a connection to nature is vital to our individual well-being and the well-being of all communities. Investing in the Delta Aquatic Center will provide benefits to all Stockton residents and the surrounding region for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we got a roll call, right?
Okay, for the consideration of the Delta Aquatic Center. Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matsumoto,
Yes.
Supervisor Hume,
Aye.
Supervisor Burgess,
Yes.
Supervisor Deng,
Yes.
there we are. Supervisor Villegas. Board Member Almy,
Abstain.
Board Member Cash.
Aye.
Board Member, is Udang correct?
Aye.
Board Member Winternet.
Yes.
Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9 ayes and what abstain? The motion carries.
At this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Pat Teran. She's representing the San Joaquin Community Foundation to say a few words.
Yes, I'm Pat Teran from Delta Sculling Center. And on behalf of Delta Sculling Center, who dared to dream this moment into reality. 2019, we began to dream about it. And especially the San Joaquin Community Foundation, who dared to step up and sponsor the dream into reality. And to the community of Stockton and all of its surrounds, this project will benefit so many. So collectively for all of them, sorry, I'm losing my voice, out of emotion, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to item 10, which is consideration of amendment to budget Community Enhancement Grant Program Agreement for the building of the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse and creation of the Delta Welcome Center project.
All right, boy, that's a hard act to follow. Good morning, board members. My name is Martha Ozenoff, and I'm the Conservancy's Community Project Supervisor. I'm pleased to present for board consideration a recommendation to amend Proposition 68 funding for Project ID 6813, the building restoration of the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse and creation of a Delta Welcome Center implementation project. This item can be found on pages 38 and 40 of your agenda packet. Conservancy staff recommends that the board approve an amendment to increase the project budget by up to $328,206 and to extend the grant term by 1 year to March 15th, 2026. The requested amendment amount represents a 19% increase in the total grant award and is being made due to inflationary costs. The Friends prepared the proposal budget over a year ago, with costs rising rapidly in the intervening months. Additionally, labor costs have increased due to prevailing wage provisions. The grantee is also requesting a term extension of 1 year from March 2025 to March 2026 to accommodate a later than expected start date due to cost increases. Furthermore, as outlined in the grantee's amendment request to Conservancy staff, this amendment is necessary to create a structurally sound, code compliant building. Without this additional funding, the project is at risk of failure. Our staff recommends this amendment for board approval, noting that there's suggested motion language at the bottom of the agenda item for your consideration. But before we proceed, I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Any questions from the public or the board?
We have public comment.
All right. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion on that.
Would you like me to read it? Or Austin, do you want to read it? Feel like you.
I'm sure you're gonna be
Okay,
much more
yeah,
eloquent.
no,
Go
no.
ahead.
We practiced this, so.
Show us what you got.
Although whoever did it, because Supervisor Hume was good. Move that the board approve an amendment to the grant agreement P 6813 with the Friends of the 1883 Clarksburg Schoolhouse to increase the budget by up to $328,206 and extend the grant term to March 15th, 2026.
I would so move.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Okay, Chair Mashburn,
Aye.
Vice Chair Matsumoto,
Yes.
Supervisor Hume,
Yes.
Supervisor Dang,
Aye.
Board Member Omi,
Aye.
Board Member Cash,
Aye.
Board Member Uday.
Aye.
And Board Member Wintermith.
Yes.
Like it carries, right?
10 ayes, the motion carries.
All right.
Sure, I just wanted to point out that there are 4 board members of the Clarksburg Schoolhouse here present. I don't know if there was any comment.
Oh, would they like to comment?
I don't know if they're here.
Yeah, we, at this moment, we didn't, we'd like to invite Will up. And
We generally don't encourage comment after it's been approved. We don't want to mess it up.
It'll be very short. Have some of our board members here. Understanding. Issues. Solution.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, well.
All right, that brings us to item 11, which is the 2022 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program Report and Technical Analysis.
Okay, good morning, board members. I'm Rachel Wigginton, Senior Environmental Scientist with the Conservancy. Today, we will be presenting Agenda Item 11, the 2022 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program Report and Technical Analysis. The staff report can be found on page 41 of the board packet, and the full report was posted on the Delta Conservancy's website on Monday, March 20th. We will be sharing some figures and tables from this report on the screens during this agenda item. I'm joined today by Lindsay Kammeyer, Water Resource Control Engineer with the Office of the Delta Water Master. Lindsay served as the chair of the 2022 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program Oversight Committee. On behalf of the Conservancy, I really want to thank Lindsay for all of her efforts to lead this oversight process and bring us to the point of reporting out to you all today.
Thank you for that introduction, Rachel, and I am pleased to be before the Delta Conservancy Board today to talk to you about the Delta Drought Response Pilot Program, also known as DRIP. This program is a result of conversations started in May of 2021. While it may be raining outside today, I want to bring everyone back in time a little bit, back to when we were very dry and concerned about conditions. Water years 2020 and 2021 were dry and critically dry, respectively, with subnormal precipitation throughout the Delta watershed. Due to the extremely dry conditions persisting across the 2020 and 2021 water years, the federal and state water projects reservoirs were drawn down to meet environmental and water quality demands. As a result, water year 2022 started with abnormally low carryover storage reserves. On August 3rd, 2021, the State Water Board approved emergency curtailment measures in the Delta watershed, potentially impacting over 80% of water right holders in the watershed. Thus, the risk of another year of drought was amplified for both the environment and for water users. These conditions drove state workers and Delta water users to collaborate on forming the DRIP program, which would address issues of water quality by reducing consumptive use. Input from Delta water users was helpful to conceptualize the program, and their input was critical for launching a successful program. The DRIP program was formed to address water quality threats by reducing consumptive use. However, the state was unsure how much consumptive water use could be reduced by reducing diversions, given the unique hydrology and geographic characteristics within the legal delta. Thus, the DRIP program is an experiment to see if we can better understand the relationship between reducing diversions and consumptive water use. Financial incentives provided farmers a reason to participate in the DRIP program and assume risk associated with growing a less valuable commodity, foregoing a crop, or reduced yields from deficit irrigation. The Delta Conservancy was engaged to facilitate the farmer application and selection process and execute grant agreements.
A selection committee, including representatives from the Delta Conservancy, the Department of Water Resources, the Office of the Delta Water Master, the California Department of Food and Agriculture, the University of California's Cooperative Extension Program, and UC Merced, was formed to evaluate applications and recommend projects for funding. And then Conservancy staff worked with the board chair and vice chair to approve projects. The map you're seeing on the screens here shows the areas enrolled in the 2022 Delta Drought Response Pilot Program. In total, the Conservancy executed 33 grants, enrolling 8,850 acres at a cost of $900 per acre, totaling almost $8 million in grant funding. Grantees estimated 22,000 acre feet in water savings through their incentivized water conservation actions.
To evaluate consumptive water use reductions through the incentivized actions, we formed an oversight committee that would do the technical analysis for this program. Members of the oversight committee included staff from the Delta Conservancy, Department of Water Resources, California Department of Food and Ag, State Water Resources Control Board, UC Cooperative Extension Office, and UC Merced. This talented group then sorted grant agreements into 4 main categories of water conservation practices. Non-irrigated crops were fields planted with crops that were not actively irrigated. Deficit irrigation were fields where crops were grown with limited to no irrigation. Not double cropping, fields only planted a winter small grain crop and then left the fields fallow during summer and left residual stubble after harvest to protect the soil health. Last, managed idle lands were defined as lands that were neither irrigated nor planted with a cash crop. While these fields received no or reduced irrigations, they may have naturally received water from under seepage. You can see in this table that grant agreements heavily favored non-irrigated crops, both in number of grants and acreage. It's the top line of the table there. Deficit irrigation and managed idle lands have a similar number of projects and acreage, while not double cropping was the least common project type. The committee's analysis examined ET or evapotranspiration, which is the combination of water from soil evaporation and plant transpiration. The committee used OpenET to estimate ET and thus changes in consumptive water use to the DRIP project fields. OpenET is a critical new tool for measuring water use in the legal delta. It provides scientifically rigorous, transparent, timely, consistent, objective, and credible measurements of crop evapotranspiration. OpenET is satellite-based with data available across 17 Western states. Using OpenET, the committee was able to estimate every project's field's consumptive water use. Our analysis would not have been possible if we didn't have this tool.
So using the data that Lindsay just described from the OpenET platform, the Oversight Committee estimated consumptive water use on each one of the fields using 5 different calculation methods. And each one of these different calculation methods was intended to reduce a different type of bias. The figure that I will be showing you now represents the results from one of these calculation methods. So on this graphic, what you're seeing is the different water conservation action types on the x-axis. Those include deficit irrigation, managed idle lands, non-irrigated crops, and not double cropping. On the y-axis of the graph, you see ET change in acre feet per acre of water. So in this case, with this calculation method, ET change was calculated by comparing measurements in 2021 to ET measurements in 2022. So positive values indicate water savings or decreased consumptive water use during the program. Each point on this graphic represents an individual field, and the bars represent the average ET change, with the error bars showing standard deviation about the mean. Here, the main takeaway is that managed idle lands were estimated to save the most water, while planting non-irrigated crops had the smallest impact on consumptive water use. Additionally, I'd like you to note that the spread of the points shows substantial variation among the fields, both within the types of water conservation actions and between or among the different types of water conservation actions. So we used these different calculation methods to estimate consumptive water use on each of the project fields and totaled those values to estimate total water savings. Based on this analysis, the Oversight Committee estimated water savings between 3,300 to 5,500 acre feet, which is 15 to 25% of the estimated 22,000 acre feet. The Oversight Committee has several hypotheses for why realized water savings were less than those estimated by the applicants. First among these hypotheses is that delta agricultural fields occur at variable elevations, with many fields below surrounding water surface levels outside of the levees. And these sorts of conditions require extensive drainage systems to manage seepage and reduce losses to ET, regardless of the farming practices. This graphic shows ET change on the x-axis, again calculated by comparing ET in 2021 to ET in 2022. And the average elevation of the project fields is on the x-axis. Again, yes?
So the y-axis.
Oh, did I misspeak?
ET.
Sorry. So the ET change, thank you, is on the y-axis. It's wrong in my notes. And the elevation is on the x-axis. Thank you very much, Lindsay. And again, this was calculated by comparing ET in 2021 to 2022. And the average elevation of the project fields is again on that x-axis. Each point on the graphic represents an individual project field. So points to the right of the vertical zero line are above sea level, while points to the left are below sea level. Similarly, points above the horizontal zero line show water savings, while points below that horizontal zero line show increased water use during the program, or increased ET readings during the program. What you can take away from this graphic is that fields that are above sea level more consistently saved water, with only one field above sea level showing increased consumptive water use during the program using this calculation method. Alternatively, while many fields to the left of that zero line, fields that are below sea level, do show water savings, most of the fields that did not save water were ones that were below sea level. In addition to field elevation, water from the water table, adjacent drainage ditches, seepage, and runoff from nearby fields may have contributed to ET measurements on project fields, particularly for crops with deeper root systems. Last, the program did require healthy soils practices, which maintained harvested crop stubble or a cover crop to reduce oxidation of peat soils or erosion of bare soils. And plant transpiration from stubble and cover crops can increase evapotranspiration measurements.
In evaluating the 2023 DRIP program, we hope to expand on the analyses in a few key ways. First, we hope to dive further into the role of delta subregions in the patterns we observed. Second, preliminary analysis from 2022 suggested most water savings occurred during the hottest months of the year, and understanding these temporal trends could improve effectiveness of water conservation actions. Finally, UC Davis will establish in-field measurement stations at 6 sites in 2023 to support this analysis. The Delta Drought Response Pilot Program provided an opportunity for farmers and state workers to collaborate on an innovative project that may impact future drought responses. While sub-regional differences within the legal delta are important to understand and account for, those differences do not preclude dialogue, concerted responses to drought efforts, or collaboration with the state drought management efforts. One lesson learned is that farmers need planning and lead time to alter their field management practices and to accommodate practices aimed at alleviating drought impacts. Generally, an effective drought response should be organized and implemented by the beginning of the water year, October 1st, to be responsive to when farmers are making field management and farming decisions. We look forward to gathering more data from the 2023 program to better understand how different actions can improve our collective drought response. Thank you for your attention, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board or any public on the phone?
So can, are the open ET estimates, is there any, do we know that they're accurate for the range of conditions that are in the Delta, or is that what the UCD work is going to verify?
Yeah, so they've done an accuracy assessment. OpenET has across like all the Western United States, including some locations within the legal Delta, I believe. So OpenET has done an accuracy assessment. They've confirmed the general accuracy of their results. And we were using monthly data for ET, which has a higher accuracy than some of their like more daily data. It can be a little bit more variable. So we do plan, though, of part of the analysis would be that some of these in-field measurements would provide, some better collaboration and continued accuracy assessments of OpenET and see, it's like what we're getting from these field measurement stations versus what OpenET has created. And even still with field measurement, there are limitations to that because there is still, interference from other conditions. And even still, you're only able to measure so large of an area within a field, and then you extrapolate that value out to the, entire field. So ET is such a difficult thing to measure. This definitely isn't, pinpoint precise. This is exactly what it is. And that's why even when Rachel was providing the estimates of consumptive water use saved, we went from 3,300 to like 5,500. And that's where the committee felt comfortable saying it's somewhere in this ballpark because it is such a difficult number to really wrap your arms around. And using OpenET was really helpful because as I mentioned, we had, or as Rachel mentioned, there were 33 project sites. And it's very expensive to fund in-field measurements of ET. So this year we'll have 6 sites and provide that kind of, additional confirmation and analysis. But we have for this coming year, something like 45 different sites, 60 sites. It's a lot, it's much fewer than we actually have field measurement stations for. So with OpenET, we're actually able to analyze many more projects and fund many more projects than we would have if we didn't have OpenET.
I should have started with, this is awesome. I'm so glad you guys are doing it. I went in and wanted to geek out, but really, really so glad that you guys took the time and invested the resources to go back and learn from this because we've got to do this, especially with drought response, is figure out how we can be effective. And so this is amazing that you guys have put this much effort into really understanding what happened. Kind of zooming back out, I'm having a hard time kind of conceptualizing like what is a 3,300 to 5,500 acre foot benefit? Like how significant is that? Like, and what would be the rough goal, for like something that would make it kind of move the dial in the Delta as far as water quality and that kind of thing?
Yeah. So the 3,300 to 5,500 isn't going to move the dial on Delta water quality. It's something like each day, I believe the outflow requirements for the projects are something like 4,000. No, it's 4,000 CFS. So since I can't do conversions in my head, like it's the 3,300 to 55 isn't terribly significant. But the goal of this program was to really do this pilot and to kind of understand what the possibilities are. So looking at it on a per acre average savings, I think it was somewhere between a third to a half an acre foot per acre enrolled in this program. Obviously, from the graph that Rachel showed, some programs saved a lot of water, some programs actually used more water. So you're not necessarily going to, that's an average across all fields. Better understanding that is helpful, but that's where I think this next program, we're going to continue to get more data, more information, and then could potentially make some, extrapolate those values and say, okay, if we were to, really blow up the program and make it huge and say, fund it with $150 million, $200 million, what could the potential water savings be? And that's where we might look at some of these places in the Delta that are heavily subsided. okay, are we getting some really strong indications that we can't save water there? Or is it still a mixed bag? And so I think from this information that we're gonna get this next year, we can better expand and see, okay, if you expanded this to maybe the entire legal delta and had everyone enrolled and everyone was doing these conservation practices, what would the acre foot of water look like? And what would that also mean to the Department of Water Resources who's funding this program? Is that enough water savings for them to be interested in doing this and expanding it? Is it worth their time? So yeah, we're hopeful to see what we can eventually do with it.
Excellent, thank you.
I would add to that really quickly and then Leo, but the graphic that's up here, you can see we have attempted to organize these different fields, which are each represented by a point, into these bins of water conservation practice. But even within each of those bins, and then across, of course, the whole spread of projects, there's a lot of variability. And we have our first sort of attempted to understand the driver behind that variability, which I think was most intuitive to all of us, which is field elevation. And from this graphic, you can see like, okay, that probably is driving some portion of this variability because our fields that are above sea level are consistently saving water. But when you look on the left of that zero vertical line, you see that there are many fields that are below sea level that are also saving water. So kind of to tie into what Lindsay was saying, I think in this next year, we're going to have many more data points. And the more data points you have, the less that variability, you just start to understand the overall pattern more and less focused on that variability. So maybe there are field characteristics of those below sea level projects that are saving water, such as soil type, such as like the specific practice they're doing. Perhaps if you're below sea level, the only thing that really saves water is managing your fields as idle versus planting safflower. So starting to like tease out some of those details will be possible in the second year of the program. Now that we have like established some of our techniques for evaluating the fields.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to say a skeptic knows the cost of everything and the value of nothing. Before this project started, well, saying I've changed, but I was a skeptic. You're putting a lot of money into to determine how you can reduce water use in an area, the Delta, where there's always a lot of seepage and a lot of water coming in. And the costs, the ultimate result of this, we're looking at cost per acre foot, I calculated this cost about $1,300 an acre foot of water saved, which is very expensive water. So that being said, I think I agree with Sandy that the information that we've learned from this though is invaluable. Definitely worth $7 million the Conservancy, the Delta Conservancy put in. And hopefully, like you suggested, whether we can manipulate, we can change the conduct of the program so that there's actually more water saved. We know we're going to have these droughts coming again, and we'll know the most effective ways or the more effective ways of conserving water. I think it was worth it in the end. I'm still a skeptic.
I would like to point out, Sarah Lesmeister here, the Ecological and Community Programs Manager of the Delta Conservancy, that this is for the water year 2022. Already in 2023, we've rerun the program again, but we did a bid with the farmers, and so the price per acre has gone down by like 50%, not 50%, like a third. So already we're getting more of a competitive market to lower the cost per acre for water saving. So we're already adopting some of our lessons learned into future iterations of that, and I'm excited for what's going to come of it.
All right. Oh, Oscar. No, it's all been said, so I won't repeat it. But first of all, congratulations to your new water master. That's exciting.
Yeah, we're excited to welcome Jay.
But I think there's no better time than, frankly, to dive into these sort of data points when we don't have the pressure of this impending gloom of drought that is just beyond our belief. It's best to probably do it and find these data points during a time when we have a little bit of relief, or at least a belief that we have relief, before we have to go back to projecting kind of how much are we willing to pay for our water during what could be the next iteration of a mega drought. So I love this stuff. Thank you very much.
That's everybody. Anybody else online?
No comment.
No, no more comments.
And
Oh.
has one.
Supervisor. Quick.
I'm muting myself. I just appreciate this presentation. I learned quite a bit and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor. All right, that brings us to overview of resources for science, data, and environmental compliance and permitting for the Delta Conveyance project.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Let me see if I can turn this on so I can see you all. There we go. Okay, thank you very much for having me today. I'm here.
Janet.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, you jumped the line just a little bit. We've got one presentation before you. Sorry for the
Oh, okay.
confusion.
Yeah, sorry. I'll be back.
No problem. You're anxious. We appreciate that.
Well, he said conveyance, so that's not.
Right.
Oh, I'm sorry,
It's
Conservancy.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I apologize. My bad.
We're all allowed.
So, good morning, board members. As I just mentioned, my name is Sarah Lesmeister, and I'm the Ecological and Community Programs Manager here at the Delta Conservancy. Today, I'm here to provide an overview of resources for science, data, environmental compliance, and permitting for Delta Conservancy projects. This is agenda item 12 of your board packet, which starts on page 44. So at our last board meeting on January 25th, Chair Mashburn requested information on what resources are available to everyone to gain a better understanding of science, data, and environmental compliance and permitting in the Delta. To address this request, Conservancy staff developed a presentation, which is agenda item 12.2, that provides an overview of these resources, which I will be going over next. After incorporating any feedback from this meeting today, we plan to post a version of the slide deck on our website. So this information is easily accessible to everyone, including board members, but also the public. So with that, let's get started. Rachel has posted the slide for our presentation. So when developing this slide deck, we viewed it through the lens of someone relatively new to the Delta and wanting to apply for a Delta Conservancy grant. First, I will go over the key science and data sources and then transition into some of the environmental compliance and permitting. And I'll wrap up with some high-level strategies that are relevant to Delta Conservancy projects. This is not an all-inclusive resource, but rather a launching pad for information. I want to highlight that Conservancy staff are a wonderful resource and we're always available for assistance. You can just reach out to us at any time and we're happy to help. So next slide. The timing of this request is actually really wonderful. Just last month, our sister agency, the Delta Stewardship Council, released a new website called the Delta Science Tracker. The Delta Science Tracker is a database that allows users to explore and visualize recent science, which includes research and monitoring, funding, and collaboration opportunities in the Delta. I really encourage those who haven't checked out this new tool to play around and explore the website. So if you're looking for restoration-specific projects, then EcoAtlas is the primary database. EcoAtlas is a free public website that provides information on the quantity and quality of wetlands in California. Through the course of several grants with the EPA, the Delta Conservancy funded the development of EcoAtlas in partnership with the San Francisco Estuary Institute. Here at the Delta Conservancy, we require all of our restoration projects to enter their project information into EcoAtlas as a condition of their grant agreement. So also in preparation for this meeting, we talked with our colleagues at the Delta Stewardship Council, and they let us know that they are working on a publication that summarizes restoration progress in the Delta. We anticipate more of that information coming on the review available later on this year. So for more specific raw data, we have provided a list, which we've categorized into themes, where people can get additional information that is of interest to their specific project. For example, many of our agricultural community may be interested in the evapotranspiration data that is available on OpenTT, which Rachel and Lindsay just went over. Data on other terrestrial conditions is available on the California Irrigation Management Information System, which is CMIS. And some of our grantees may also be interested in real-time water quality conditions for information on salinity, water temperature, turbidity, and more. There are two main websites for this, the state's website, which is the California Data Exchange Center, CDEC, Also the federal website, which is through the Geological Survey. So it's the National Water Information System for California. One specific example to highlight here is where to get information about species of concern. For example, Chair Mashburn used the example of the Swainson's hawk. That information can be found on CDFW's website regarding species management. I've also listed several other websites that have databases that are relevant to the Delta Conservancy's projects, including CNRA's Open Data Platform, the Delta Landscape Scenario Planning Tool, and more. We did notice that when we were preparing this slide that we left off Cal EnviroScreen, which is a social science database. We'll be adding that link to the slides when we share this presentation on our website. So up next, we have environmental compliance. For the projects that the Conservancy has funded, we keep copies of all the environmental compliance documents as part of their project folders. Conservancy staff are able to assist with that project information. Just reach out to us at any time. For projects that are not Conservancy funded, there are various places to obtain those documents. One of the main sources for CEQA forms is the State Clearinghouse. For other CEQA documents, often lead agencies host the documents on their websites. For example, we have here the City of Fairfield hosts the CEQA documents for the Pacific Flyway Center. The Delta Stewardship Council website includes a database that lists all the Delta Plan covered actions. It is a requirement for Delta Conservancy grants to ensure that they are consistent with the Delta Plan and file the Delta Plan consistency checklist with the Delta Stewardship Council. Finally, some agencies post their approved permits on their websites. Here we have a link of public notices. Here we link public notices related to the Clean Water Act, Section 401, which is a permit for any activity that may discharge into a water body. So next slide. So this slide may be a little intimidating, but it covers the most frequently used or frequent types of permits for a Delta Conservancy project that they may need to proceed for implementation. Permits can range everything from federal and state all the way down to regional, city, or county. In consideration of everyone's time here, I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I really want to point out that this list is readily available. And in short, permits are really project specific. And we want to let you know that Conservancy staff are here to help if you have a project ID or a project idea and want to share it. We can help guide you on what type of permits are going to be required. Next slide. So once you have an idea of kind of the science, data, and environmental compliance and permitting required for your project, it's important to understand how your project is connected to higher level science strategies. Here we've listed some of the main guiding documents. So in addition to the Delta Conservancy strategic plan, projects should consider the Delta Stewardship Council's Delta Plan with special attention to Chapter 4 and the Delta Science Strategy. The Delta Science Strategy includes a Delta Science Plan, Science Action Agenda, and State of the Bay Delta Science publication. I also want to point out here the Interagency Ecological Program, which is a group of state and federal agencies conducting research and monitoring in the Delta. They also have a science strategy that they release and share. Okay, up next slide. In addition to these overarching science strategies, there is a addressing climate change requirement of all of our Delta Conservancy projects as well. Here we've listed a bunch of these documents that range everything from Delta specific, for example, Delta Adapts, all the way up to the statewide initiatives. Some of the statewide initiatives here include the Climate Resiliency Strategy and the Water Resiliency Portfolio as guiding documents. All right, next slide. Finally, the Delta Conservancy requires the use of project proponents to use the best science available. There are countless publication journals that that people can use. Here we noted a couple of the main ones that are relevant to Delta projects. There's a regional journal called the San Francisco Estuary and Watershed Sciences, STEWS for short. We also have Ecological Restoration and Invasive Plant Science and Management. Additionally, there are other reoccurring newsletters and reporting venues listed here, ranging from public agencies, academia, nonprofits, and more. I do want to point out here, I put the Estuary News on here, but that is a publication that is being sunsetted. However, that link does go to the archive of all those materials. So, final slide. In conclusion, to summarize, Delta science, data, environmental compliance, and permitting is very complex. You may have seen this diagram in other settings, but it shows many of the agencies, working groups, stakeholders, and more affiliated with Delta science. I noted here the little red circle where we at the Delta Conservancy fit in, and it's all connected. So I've actually been working in the Delta science realm for over 15 years, and I still feel like I struggle to have a full grasp of all this information and where to get it. So we, in developing this presentation, I want to point out, we really collaborated internally. We all had to come together, brainstorm ideas. What did we leave off? What should we include? Da, 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 da. And then we also had to reach out with our partners at the Delta Stewardship Council as well to get and to make sure the information provided here and is updated and accurate as well. While the slide deck is intended to be a helpful resource, I want to really point out that Conservancy staff are an even better resource. You and anyone in the public can reach out to Conservancy staff at any time. We can guide you to more specific information, answer questions, and more. We're really here to help. So the last one, I also listed Rachel Wigginton, which is our senior environmental scientist who helped tremendously in creating this presentation. Our contact information is available here on the slide, but also available on our website at any time. So with that, I'm happy to have any questions, comments, concerns.
Any questions from the members of the board here or online or from the public on that item? I don't see any, so I'd just like to say thank you. I appreciate this. This is going to be an incredibly invaluable tool for those of us who are new to the Delta and don't. I've been on the Delta, just for clarification, many times. But also who are trying to navigate that last slide. When you look at all those dots, when you look at all those interconnecting lines, right? Trying to navigate that.
Oh, yeah.
For someone who's had 15 years experience and it's hard to navigate, imagine, you know, for us neophytes to do that. So I'm appreciative, very appreciative. I'm sure the board is too. And I know the public will be when they're out there trying to put together their applications and presentations. And as you said, the folks here at the Conservancy are absolutely the best resource, but this will also augment that. This will be wonderful. Thank you for putting this together.
And thank you for encouraging it. It was a really good exercise for all of us here at the Conservancy and for us to reach out to our partners and for us to create this resource to post online as well. I think it will be really helpful for everyone. So
I think the public's gonna love this. Yeah.
I'll just say too, from a policy perspective, this is super helpful. When you're going through trying to figure out what programs exist and how they impact, and when you're trying to create a new program in that space in the legislature, being able to see all of this without having to call DWR and then work our way down the list of folks, because that's usually the way it goes. It takes 2 weeks. That is so fair. So thank you from that weird policy wonky side too.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you. All right. That brings us down to the EcoRestore update.
Charlotte with us?
Yeah, hi, I'm here online. Can you see me?
We have you now.
Good. Good morning, everyone. I just have a really quick update today on EcoRestore and the department's multi-benefit habitat restoration projects. We have 2 large projects that are under construction right now this year, but it is winter, and so it's our slowest time of year for construction. So I don't have a ton to update, but just to kind of keep you in the loop on what's going on. So for the Big Notch project, which is at the Fremont Weir, the Fremont Weir is currently overtopping and scheduled to continue for the next week or so. And so construction work on the site has been on pause, and honestly, it's been on pause mostly since January, when the Fremont Weir first started overtopping. We are coordinating with fish and wildlife agencies, and so we will be doing fish rescue once the water recedes, and we'll be kind of all hands on deck for that. And the coffer dams that are out at the site now are performing as intended. So no issues to report other than it's just very slow and muddy and wet out there. On Lookout Slough, which is our largest tidal restoration project and flood improvement project that's under construction right now, it's in the southern bypass area. So we did complete 60 acres of tidal wetland restoration out at that site in 2022. Forgot what year it is. And so that was just at the end of last year. That was a standalone parcel called Vogel, but it is part of the Lookout Sioux project. So that is complete. And then in just the last couple of weeks, we were able to complete a conservation easement for giant garter snake for about 150 acres on the site as well. So that's been recorded. Those are basically the two milestones that we've had in the last couple months. Construction will pick back up in the spring. It's kind of on pause right now. And then just to let you all know, because I know many of you have been working in the Delta for a long time and have heard of Prospect Island, which is a project that has been in the works for a very long time. It's tidal wetland restoration in the Cache Slough in Solano County. And we are happy to say that we are moving that project forward. It was kind of on pause for a few years, but we are working with the Reclamation District on site to finalize that design. It's very close to being done, and so hopefully we can construct that project next year or the following year is the goal, start construction. So those are the main big updates for right now, but happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board or any folks online?
Mr. Chair, at the risk of asking, is it possible to, the Fremont Weir, I know it's overtopping now, you said for another week and a half or so, the fish rescue will begin, I would imagine, right around the time that no longer overtops. Is it possible to go out and observe what that looks like in terms of the fish rescue, given all the work we've done out there? Is that something, I know it's hard to get out there, but is that possible at all to go observe that?
I'm sure we could coordinate. We could definitely ask. Yeah.
If not, that's fine. I'm just fascinated by the whole idea that we actually have to grab them and catch them and stick them in a truck and drive them to another location.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I can't tell who's talking, but if you want to email me, I can work with the team and see if that's possible. I don't.
If not, that's fine, but I'll do that.
Yeah.
Oscar, Villegas, yeah.
Oh, Oscar. Okay, sorry. And I think the other thing maybe I could ask is to do like a video or something for anyone that can't get out there, because it is pretty. It's really awesome to see. So that's a great idea.
Right. Okay.
But I'll send you an email. I'll check with the team and follow up.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, anybody else? Seeing none. All right, thank you, man.
Thank you.
We move on to the Delta Stewardship Council update.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brandon Chapin. I'm the Legislative and Policy Advisor at the Council. I have to say that being here is bringing back a lot of great memories, having worked at the Council a few years back. So happy to be here. I'm here in place of Amanda Bold, who usually provides the update. She's not able to make it today. And then also on the line, I have Vialong Nguyen, who's our executive fellow, who's going to be providing a little bit of this update as well. So it's been a few months since I think you guys have all received a council update. So in our last two meetings of this year, back in January, we approved our priorities for the year. And so some of those, just to highlight, it's been the ecosystem amendment's been mentioned. So that was finalized last year, but we'll be starting a rulemaking process on that throughout the year. Our environmental justice issue paper is expected to be completed at some point this year, more towards the second half. Delta Adapt's adaptation strategy is also expected to be finalized at some point near the second half of this year. And then kind of along the lines of the science that was discussed earlier by Sarah, is our science program will be looking to release its new upcoming research proposal solicitation notice for research projects in the Delta, again, at the second half of this year. So a lot of really busy year for the council upcoming, and we're really looking forward to it. At our last council meeting, one of the big topics was our Delta levy investment strategy. The legislature charged the council with developing a prioritization of Delta levies to protect state assets. And so the council at this last meeting approved staff to move forward with submitting the rulemaking package for the DLIS, the Office of Administrative Law and Department of Finance. So that's expected to become regulation by July. A few new faces at the council. First is Supervisor Burgess has joined the council in her capacity as chair of the Delta Protection Commission and jumped feet first right in and the controversial topic of D-list for her second meeting. But we're looking forward to working with her on the council, and also thank Supervisor Natoli, who was that position for the 2 years prior to it. It was already alluded to, but it was mentioned that we have a new Delta Water Master, Jade Ziegler, who is the External Affairs and Policy Director at the Nature Conservancy. The Water Master advises both the Water Board and the Council on water rights and water quality and operations. We're expecting his first update at the Council, I believe, in April or May, over the next few months. So I'm looking forward to hearing his first report as the new Water Master. Two more just kind of updates coming up. Our Adaptive Management Forum from the Science Program will be occurring on May 4th and 5th at the CNRA headquarters in downtown Sacramento. So I encourage you all to attend and participate. The theme of the forum is going to be adaptive governance. So how do we set up a governance structure that best supports adaptive management in the Delta? Lastly, tomorrow is the council's next council meeting. We're going to be meeting on Sherman Island at Bella View Winery. So we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be a shorter meeting, but it's going to focus on Sherman Island and have a panel of experts talking about the recreational opportunities, habitat restoration, experimental Delta smelt releases, and everything that's going on around there. That's it for me. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Viet Long, who's going to provide an update on DPIC, one of the many acronyms that was discussed earlier.
Hello, good morning, board members. I hope you can hear me. My name is Viet Long Wing, and I'm the Executive Fellow at the Delta Stewardship Council. And I'd like to give a brief update on the Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee, or called DPIC. DPIC is made up of local, state, and federal agencies involved in the Delta, and it serves as a forum to discuss and coordinate Delta Plan implementation. Earlier this year, we met with several DPIC member agencies, including the Conservancy, and discussed how to make this interagency committee most impactful. And informed by these conversations, we've decided to focus DPIC this year on building relationships and creating a space for dialogue and building connections. With this in mind, I want to invite you to our first DPIC meeting of this year on April 24th, which will focus on restoration. We will be visiting the Dutch Slough restoration site in the morning and then convene at Big Break Shoreline to discuss the progress of the restoration subcommittee and how DPIC leaders can engage further on restoration. Please stay tuned for the final meeting information coming out next month. We hope to see you there and appreciate the Conservancy's engagement and valuable contributions to DPIC. And that's it for my update. Thank you.
Thanks, Elon. And that's it for us. Happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board or anybody online? Any of the board online? Seeing no hands, no questions. Thank you, sir.
Actually, really quick, I will pass a lot around. I have some printouts of our annual report in case anyone's interested.
Okay, thank you.
Bunch of extra copies.
All right, next is the Delta Protection Commission update.
Good morning, everyone. You're moving through the agenda quickly. That's great. This is Bruce Blodgett, Delta Protection Commission. A couple things. We did move up our meeting in March for a number of reasons. One was to finalize our comments on the Delta Conveyance project. Extremely important for us to get those comments in. And the second part of that equation was also to enable my attendance and our attendance at the Natural Resources Agency directors meeting last week in Los Angeles. So that was a great opportunity to go meet with the other leaders and in all of the different agencies at the Natural Resources Agency and look at everybody's priorities as a group. So a great opportunity. But again, we did submit our comments last week on time, and we like to thank the commission for approving those and getting that moved forward. We also attended the March 1st hearing down in Stockton, which was really more of a meeting by the Army Corps of Engineers. Next item that was just mentioned, Delta Levy Investment Strategy. I do want to emphasize a point here, and that is Delta Subventions Program, Levy Subventions Program ends in 2024. And I think that's something as a priority for all of our Delta agencies to work with the Delta interests to look at available options for Delta levies moving forward. So at the end of 2024, that funding dries up. We need to find some new sources. I know there's talks of bonds and a whole host of other things, but we need to get to work on this and get moving on Delta levies funding. Regarding staffing, we're in the process of hiring a new information officer. Hope to have that done here in the next month. And we do have another position open, but we're going to do an assessment of our agency as a whole and see how to best fill that position or positions as we move forward. So that's something that we're working on as well. Signage. Back in February, we got word that California Conservation Corps was going to have a welcome to the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta National Heritage Area, which is a mouthful. I saw the sign. It was laying on the ground. They were working. I went back at the end of the day, they were gone and the sign was gone and it's still not up. So as you might noticed, we went from drought to flooding, which is fairly normal in California, unfortunately. They do not work outside in days that it's raining, so they haven't had many opportunities to get back out there. But we are looking forward to having signs, and hopefully next time I'll actually have pictures of signs that are up in the Delta that I can have in your packet there. But right now, we're in a holding pattern. We have also Clean California signage program in the Delta as well. That is moving forward slowly. That only took about a year to get a contract executed with Caltrans. And now we're working to try to actually get some signs on the ground for that program as well. The National Heritage Area is really exciting in terms of moving forward. Finally, again, some problems with contracting. And we do have our contract now with our consultant. We are working on our management plan that we hope to take to the commission in either our September or November meeting. And then for submittal, we'll have to submit that to the Department of Interior in March of 2024. So that's something that we're working on and excited about. We had an opportunity, Blake Roberts, who's the program manager for the Heritage Area, and I attended the Alliance for National Heritage Areas conference back in Washington, D.C. Met with several members of Congress to talk to them about the Heritage Area and needs moving forward. And it was a great opportunity to touch base with the heritage areas from across the country, as we're the only heritage area in California. It's not like we can go down the road and talk to a neighboring heritage area. So this is a great opportunity to talk to other heritage areas of what they're doing to promote their heritage area and move our heritage area forward. So this is an exciting time that we're going to see a management plan and a marketing plan for the Sacramento-San Joaquin River Delta heritage area. So that's something that we're very excited about. Coming meetings, Delta Protection Commission next meeting is scheduled for May 18th. Our Delta Protection Advisory Committee meeting is scheduled for April 4th. And I'm looking to see if I have anything else. I think that's most of the big, oh, wait, another project, land use kind of quieted down. It's now starting to pick back up. And I know this is of interest to both the Stewardship Council and the Conservancy. The Jersey Island proposal continues to kind of creep along. If you don't know, Jersey Island is in the primary zone of the Delta. It's a proposal to build some 300 to 400 homes of hotel, gas stations, and everything in the primary zone of the Delta. So we have some concerns, along with other Delta agencies having concerns with that proposal in Contra Costa County. So that's something that we're monitoring, one of the many things that we're monitoring out in the Delta. So with that, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the board present or online, or the public online? Seeing hands raised. All right. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. That moves us on to the Delta Conveyance update. So.
There we go. Now it's my turn. Yeah, sorry about that. I heard Delta Conveyance Project and I just jumped right in there. All right, well, thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I am here on behalf of Carrie Buckman. She's our environmental program manager, and she had a conflict today, so I am here in her place. My name is Janet Barbieri, and I am a consultant to the department on the communications and public engagement and outreach. And I just have a couple of things to provide you an update on. I think it's been a while since the project has made a presentation to the Delta Conservancy, I think even before the draft EIR was released. So the first thing I wanted to mention is that we did have the draft environmental impact report published and available for public review and comment, and that was from July 27th through December 16th. It's about 142 days. We are now in the process of going through and reviewing the public comments and responding to those, and that will all be captured in the final EIR, which is expected at the end of this year. I thought you might be interested in hearing, we got about, let's see, 729 letters or communications. Some of those were letters, there were some emails and some other things, but 729 with about 7,300 unique comments. And those covered a really broad range of policy and technical and environmental issues. I would say the majority of those centered around things like alternatives, the merits of the project, operations, groundwater, climate change, and the general process overall. All those you can imagine in a document like our draft EIR and a project like this, the comments were pretty broad. I also wanted to mention that the Army Corps of Engineers also had their draft environmental impact statement out and available. Their comment period just ended on March 16th. And I know there can be some confusion sometimes among the public between the draft EIR and the draft EIS or CEQA and NEPA. We did put a document together that's available on our website that just talks about what the differences are between those two processes. And I just mentioned that in case anyone would find that helpful. We do have a number of other things available on our website that I wanted to mention. There is a fact sheet that describes conceptual operations. If the project had been operational in January of this year, January 1st through 31st, we thought that might be a helpful piece of information. Sometimes, like last year, this year, there's a lot of water moving through the system, flashy storms, sort of, runs hot, runs cold, and we thought that it would be helpful for folks to see sort of conceptually what the project would do if it were operational at this time of year. So that's available on there. And I just wanted to mention a couple of other things. We also do a progress report at the end of every year. So we have one available that covers 2019 through 2022. And then I also wanted to mention, you probably saw when we had our draft environmental impact report out that we had the main site on the Department of Water Resources, but we had what was called a microsite that was specific to all of the documentation for the draft EIR. We're going to convert that site into a permit portal. And so it will no longer just be about CEQA. It'll have information related to all of the permitting processes that the project has to go through. So hopefully the public will find that helpful. It'll have a flow chart that describes sort of how we move through compliance with each of the different permits. And that will probably be made live, I would say, in the next 2 to 4 weeks, something like that. So hopefully folks find that helpful. Just two remaining things. One is that we are continuing to do some outreach in the Delta. There's not a lot going on this year in terms of like official public engagement processes like we had last year for the draft EIR, but we have a consultant that works for us called Ag Innovations. They're brought on board specifically to do outreach to environmental justice communities. They will continue through this year doing what they did last year, which was pretty successful in terms of just being out in the community at different events, farmers markets and just wherever people are gathering, and they come out there with a table of information, and just thought it would be a helpful way to continue to try to remind people that this project exists, that there's a process for it, and just provide as much information and answer questions as we can. And then lastly, we're continuing to work on the community benefits program. And I would just say if there's any communities in the Delta that are interested in that and want more information, to please reach out and and let us know. And so I'm happy to answer questions.
Any questions from any members of the board here or online or the public? See any hands raised? All right, thank you, ma'am, very much for that. I appreciate it. Right, that brings us to potential agenda items.
Yes, just very quickly, we just have three bullets. We're going to hope to meet at the Oakley for the Big Break Science Center. I don't know why I always trip on that. And have a site visit at our May meeting. We anticipate hopefully more community enhancement grants, as well as more amendments. We are experiencing increased costs, so we can expect that. And this is just an opportunity for any board members who have any other thoughts or ideas about things that they'd like to see covered at the May board meeting. We're open to that.
Hearing none. All right. We've got one more shot at public comment. If there's anybody online who'd like to address the board on any items, or if there's any members of the board who have any further comments. Seeing none. All right, I will adjourn this meeting.
Thank you all very much.